Hello everyone, Trophy 100. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm reviewing one of my favorite wines, which is Chateau Cheval Blanc 2011. So Cheval Blanc is in the Saint-Emilion region. Cheval Blanc, in translated, means white horse. The history of the winery started in 1832 when the Ducasse family purchased some lands from the owners of Chateau Figeac. And at that time, Chateau Figeac was huge. It was 200 hectares, and the owners decided to sell off some of the lands, and many of the other wineries, which have the name Figeac in it, come from that larger estate. In 1852, Mille Ducasse got married to Jean Laussac-Fourcaud, and she was given a dowry, which was 2 of the 5 gravel mounds in Saint-Emilion. And so that was the basis of the holdings of the Laussac-Fourcaud family. And by and large, that's mostly what Cheval Blanc is now. They did add a small amount in 1871. And so it's about 41 hectares. That hasn't changed since the late 1800s. Only 39 hectares of that is planted. It was known at one time in its early history as Barrail de Cailloux, but they decided to change the name further. So first it was actually bottled under Chateau Figeac, but they wanted to get away from that, so then they named it Barrail de Cailloux, means a barrel of tiny stones, because there are unique gravel stones there, much to like du Cailloux. But they then changed it to Cheval Blanc, which is a way better name, way classier name than the Barrail de Cailloux. So I'm glad they did that. One of the reasons they started to bottle under their own name was that they were starting to win awards and wanted to distinguish themselves from Chateau Figeac. And it's still prominent. These 2 little symbols on the left and right of the label, I think those are kind of medals or awards that they won. So it's still prominent on their label. In 1998, it was purchased by Bernard Hinault and also Baron Albert Frère. Then this was sold in 2009 to LVMH. So I think they're in pretty good hands in terms of their ability to produce top quality wines and the money aspect of things. When Bernard Hinault purchased the winery, he put in Pierre Lotton as the manager of the estate, and Pierre also manages great estates like Decam, like La Tour de Pan, and Quinault. He also owns Chateau Margaux, which I've done a review of. That's kind of his own winery, so that's a winery that I would also look out for. In 2008, Pierre-Olivier Clouet joined the winery as the technical director, and I had the pleasure of actually going and visiting him and having lunch with him at the winery in 2019. He's a really smart guy, very well respected in Bordeaux as a winemaker, and so his addition has been instrumental in terms of the great quality of Cheval Blanc. I'm always very interested in kind of breaking down why great wines are so great, and although not everything can be explained, there are some things that can give you some clues. So one of the things is that where it is situated, Cheval Blanc is situated on the border in the northeast part of Saint-Emilion, close to Pomerol. So it's got kind of the best of both worlds, and that's why probably it's well loved. The second thing is they spent a ton of money on a full-scale renovation of the winery, the cellar, everything in 2011. And with that, they were able to have, I think, almost 50 some odd different cement vats where they can ferment all the different plots of land separately. That takes a lot of money. Not everyone has that. So you hear a lot of different wineries have, I have 120 different plots, but it's all kind of mixed in one vat normally, or a couple of vats, not each individual, which is cost a tremendous amount of money, but obviously gives you a lot of options. They also have, I think, 14 different sizes of vats. And again, it gives you the option of blending. It's kind of like a chemistry experiment, that type of thing. The more kind of vials you have or the beakers you have, the more choices you have. And really, that gives them a lot of options. In the St. Emilion Grand Cru classification system, they were elevated to Grand Cru Class A level in 2006, but in 2021, they, along with Chateau Son and Chateau Angelis and another winery, I think it's La Gaffayère, also decided not to participate anymore in the system. So this is the 2011 vintage, so you'll still see it. It says first Grand Cru Class A, and so that only appears in bottles between 2006 and I guess 2022, I would guess, because then, yeah, they're out of the classification this year. Their vineyard is planted 52% Cabernet Franc, 43% Merlot, 5% Cabernet Sauvignon, but they like to get the Cabernet Franc up closer to 55% and the Merlot down to 40%. In fact, when I was at the winery, Pierre actually said that it was actually closer to 60% Cabernet Franc in the vineyard, even though in the blend it's only about 40% because the yield of Cabernet Franc is less. So the key with Cheval Blanc is their Cabernet Franc, and it's the, you know, even though Merlot is dominant, the Cabernet Franc is quite substantial, and that's really what makes the Cheval Blanc so special and gives that attributes of Pomerol, which, you know, some of the top wineries have a huge amount of Cabernet Franc in them. And so they have a lot of vines that are older. So they have 8 hectares of Cabernet Franc that are planted in the 50s. They have some that are planted back in the 20s. And the key to that is that there was a huge frost in the 60s in Bordeaux, and many of the old vines, especially Cabernet Franc, were uprooted and replanted with Merlot. And so those that actually survived are fairly resistant and are actually better at surviving very harsh conditions. They went through this huge frost that killed almost all the vines. So those that survived get stronger. And these original plantings are called Boucher, or Boucher strain. And the Boucher strain is seen in top wineries like Cheval Blanc, like Le Cossaillon, like Ausson. And so there's only a handful of wineries. I can't name them all, but there's only a handful of wineries that still have the original strain of Boucher Cabernet Franc. And again, that makes them very resistant for bad vintages or bad, very frosty weather. And subsequently for a vintage like 2011, many wineries in the right bank that have a substantial amount of Cabernet Franc will have those really green herbaceous tastes that overpower the wine. And wines like Cheval Blanc, as you'll kind of see with my tasting, have a little bit more voluptuous, almost violet purplish taste to them. The other thing that adds to the beauty of the Cheval Blanc is the complexity of the terroir. So there's really 3 different soil types. About 40% of their soils are gravel over blue clay. Another 40% are deep gravel soils, and the remaining 20% consist of sandy clay on soil. So again, this allows them to have different complexities, different tastes, even though they're growing the same grape. There are 5 elevated gravel hills in Saint-Emilion. 2 of them belong to Cheval Blanc. I don't know who the other 3 are, but probably a good bet that most of them are with Chateau Figeac, which is probably why that's also a spectacular winery. And so because they have this hill, the Cheval Blanc is slightly warmer and almost has a microclimate, and that also helps in a little bit colder vintages, especially in this, not generally vintages are getting hotter, but in the winter and in the spring, there can be some chilliness, and that can hurt the wines in terms of their growth, and that this little bit of elevation and this microclimate helps. And the temperature difference might be, you know, half or 1.5 degrees, but that makes a substantial difference to the grapes. For the 2011 vintage, the blend was 52% Cabernet Franc, 47% Merlot, and just a percent of Cabernet Sauvignon. The wines were aged 100% in new French oak barrels for 18 months. And again, the beauty of Cheval Blanc is really that they have both aspects of Saint-Emilion and Pomerol. So I can give you the flashy wording that other wine experts, but I'm going to just describe it in my own words. For me, Saint-Emilion is got that rich fruit with the chocolatiness and the smooth aftertaste. And then for Pomerol, I find that that's got that Cabernet Franc, which has got a little bit of edginess, raciness, and then also that, again, complexity of the tannins and the mouth feel. That's kind of how I describe it. I can give you the description that people talk about, but that really doesn't mean a lot to me. So generally people say that, you know, Pomerol is opulent and Saint-Emilion is flamboyant, but that doesn't really do a lot for me. What I can say is that when I was eating with Pierre, one of the things that struck me is that he said the wines are produced, they focus on complexity, not intensity. And this is very key because we're always thinking about power, but it's not power with Cheval Blanc, it's complexity. And that comes through. So it doesn't have to scream in your face, but it has to be interesting, complex. And that really kind of changed my mindset when I drink Cheval Blanc. So you're not looking for all that power, all that fruit. You're looking for complexity. And this is one of the best wines when you're trying to figure out what complexity means in a wine. This is one of the best because that's what they strive to achieve. Here we have the cork, very simple. Chateau Cheval Blanc, 2011. Nice cork, no problems with it. Here's the label, very simple. Again, it still has the Grand Cru Class AA. It hasn't come out of this classification system. Very simple label on the back. Let's look at the actual color of the wine. Nice color. Doesn't really show any signs of aging, but it drinks very nicely at this point. Let's get to the drinking of this wine. I'll let you know that I've had this over 2 days now, over several meals, and really got a good chance to drink it and enjoy it by myself. So what I can tell you is when I first opened it, I didn't decant it, pop it open right away, really fragrant, violets, perfume, black fruit, with a slight kind of loamy aftertaste. As it continued to evolve, when it opened up, it settled in a little bit less powerful than at first in terms of the shock of things, and into a little bit more, I would say, not as good a phase in terms of for drinking style. So I have now had it overnight in the fridge, now drank it again over several hours today. And again, the thing that stands out with Cheval Blanc is the complexity of flavors and the aromas. And in this vintage, I think the Cabernet Franc really shines through quite a bit. So let's go through it. Again, I think it's been well aerated, but you could probably aerate it a little bit more. This is a very youthful wine still, so it's not gonna be over aerated. So on the smell, again, the complexity is the key here. You get figs, you get anise, you get floral components, violets, plums, black currants, almost a woodiness to it. Yeah, lots going on here. You could probably smell this for 2 to 3 minutes and still pick up more aromas. But very fragrant, and a slight, almost minerally, like iron, metallic aroma to this. So this wine, I think, does need food, but when you taste it without food, the Cabernet Franc really comes out. So when I taste Cabernet Franc to me tastes slightly, if it's not well done, it's really herbaceous. It's like eating like lettuce or asparagus. But when it's now nicely done here and the quality of the tannin, it tastes almost like an iron, like glycerin. There's a minerally component to it. There's a raciness to it. So it's kind of a little bit bittersweet, but not to a point where it's not pleasurable. So it's kind of on the verge of being metallic, but it's got some fruit also into it. I don't know if that's describing it right, but that's what I taste. Of course, you taste the black plums and the black currants, things like that. But it's that extra little bit of component of almost like a metallic glycerol type taste. I see this also in Petrus sometimes, that it's got this glycerol kind of sweet, sweet metallic taste to it. On the aftertaste, chocolatey, very smooth. And it's one of these wines that's very unique. I don't see this very much. If you drink Pomerol wines, if you drink Saint-Emilion wines, you don't really see this very much, this taste. Yeah, it's a very unique taste that you can tell there's a lot of Cabernet Franc in this. But it's got that complexity. I don't think it's hugely bold, but it's very flavorful, and it's got a long aftertaste and a lot of complexity. So on the second taste now, I'm getting bittersweet chocolate, mocha, tea leaves on the aftertaste, because I'm now focusing a little bit more on the secondary taste. This, again, is a very easy to drink wine. Easily I could polish off a bottle of this wine, no problem, because it's so nicely balanced. The tannins are, I wouldn't say they're weak. They're not. They are medium plus tannins, but the quality of tannins, and we talked about this with other videos, the quality of tannins is very high because they're not sharp. What I mean by quality of tannins, some tannins you get their mouth and it dries, and that's, we thought, at least when I thought as a drinker, that is good tannins. That's strong tannins. That's not quality tannins. And what I mean by quality tannins is this has strong tannins, but it doesn't dry up your mouth like that. It slowly kind of coats your mouth, and it doesn't, it's not harsh. It's almost, you feel it's very smooth, but then you're saying, well, wait a minute, this is pretty heavy. So it's, that's the other thing with Cheval. Cheval is never heavy. It seems like a heavy, if you look at the stats on this wine, it is a heavy wine, and I'll look at it here. Yeah, it's a 14% alcohol wine. Most people would not figure, this seems like a 12.5% wine in terms of but why it is because it's so subtle. So it is heavy, but it doesn't feel heavy. It's tannic, but it doesn't feel tannic. And I think part of it is that we talk about the quality of tannin is very important. So the quality of these tannins are very good. They aren't rough, they're smooth, but it gives you that backbone. The same thing with the Cabernet Franc. It's very, the backbone of it, the structure is very good. So the more you kind of drink this wine, the more you'll like it. So for my score of this, sorry I'm being long-winded about this, but it is a really, really interesting wine when you drink Cheval Blanc. My score of this is 93 points, and you're gonna say, trophy, come on, you went all this, and you score this 93 points. Again, what we have to think about is, one is that this is a moment in time. That's how I feel about it today. In 5 years, it might be different. And two, that's just a score. That doesn't mean, that's a technical rating for me in terms of, you know, the different things. It's not a pleasure rating. I love Cheval, whether it's 2011, 1990. I love the balance of this wine. So I don't think it really has any bearing on the pleasure I have with this wine. I love this wine. I love Cheval Blanc. So that's just for me to put in line technically where this wine is with other wines that I have tasted. So as to the ability of this wine to age, I think it'd age fine for another 10, 15 years easily, as opposed to a lot of 2011s that I've drank that are that probably couldn't age as long. Cheval Blanc, unbelievably, is one of the most is one of the best wines to age for any vintage. So it seems kind of not strong, but it's unassuming, and generally speaking, Cheval Blanc ages very well. So 20 years is no problem for this wine. It is drinking very nicely right now. Will it improve a lot more? I'm not sure, but it could obviously benefit for some aging. Hope you've enjoyed this video. A little bit long-winded, but it is one of my favorite wines. Until next time, happy drinking.